I'm Julia Davis, a film major who stumbled into the business world with no experience in 2006. I was able to fail enough to learn how to run a 7-figure business and have provided consulting services to over 200 individually owned companies. Through this podcast, I hope to provide some perspective on the growth and grit it takes to accomplish big goals and share some hard lessons I've had to learn along the way. All right, so today on the Growth and Grit podcast, we have Monie Wilder, who has built herself a real estate reputation in Arizona. I looked at some of her stats, and she rose from learning real estate to being number one on a lot of trackers, and it's just really cool to see that, especially because I know that you're semi-new to the real estate industry. You haven't been doing this for 20 years. So can you go through a little bit of why did you decide to go from owning a CrossFit gym, which was your past career? And I have people in my life that have owned CrossFit gyms, so I know the profitability in that is maybe $0. I don't know how much you used to make owning a CrossFit gym, but and maybe you can share that, like what you did on your best year. But can you go into that a little bit of like what that was like to own a CrossFit gym and then why you transitioned into real estate?
Yeah, so I know, and it's so funny because I think back to my days of owning the CrossFit gym and the amount of stress and just everything that it entailed and how incredibly shaky it was when it came to trying to make any type of money doing it. But we did pretty well. We had a fairly big gym. I think we grew it eventually up to like 400 members. So like when you start getting into those type of membership numbers, you do make some pretty good money, but it's just like every month is like this ongoing kind of battle to even just get people to like pay you for their monthly dues and track everything down. So but one of the things that I loved about it was coaching. So I was the head coach of the CrossFit program at my gym. And it got me really I think in tune with like my passion and maybe talent for like connecting with people and understanding what their drivers are and their motivations, and then helping them sort of move themselves in the direction they want to go, but making it their idea. As we were doing that, we were aware of like HGTV and saw people like flipping houses. And we were like, well, we had a good month at the CrossFit gym. Let's go and like see if we can flip a house. Let's see if we can kind of create a new stream of income for ourselves. So we started doing that. And then I started seeing how much commission I was paying these realtors who I felt like were just like basically putting a sign in the yard and putting the house in the MLS. And I was like, what the hell? Like, why am I paying all this? What is this license about? And my husband's like, well, just go get your license. And in Arizona, there's a 9-day crash course, they call it, to get your license. So I was like, well, sign me up. And I got the license. And funny enough, we kind of didn't do much flipping after that, but I started to talk to people at my gym about, home ownership and buying their first home. And within my first month of being licensed, I had my first client. I made my first sale, I think a month after that. And then after that, every month since, I was selling more and more homes to the people at my gym. So it just became, because of the relationship I had with them, I knew their lives, I knew their family, often their kids and spouses came. It just became this sort of easy transition to help them with, home ownership. And I discovered very quickly that I absolutely loved the real estate industry. I thought it was challenging and interesting and fun. And I have a certain intensity to me that it's this area where it's like you can be as big as you want, you can expand and build anything you want. It's so creative, and it also has no limit. And so for me, if you put my personality in a place that's like unlimited, I just exploded in it. So after I think 2 years of being licensed, more and more of my time was spent selling homes as opposed to being in my gym. And then with that meant I had to hire people for the gym, which meant my overhead is getting higher there. And it just became like, you know what, this place doesn't make any money. It's a headache. There's constantly drama in CrossFit gyms. So you're dealing with that. And so once, right around when COVID was just starting to become a thing, we closed our gym. And then I think it was maybe a month and a half or 2 months later, all gyms in Arizona were mandatory closed. And so that just sort of, I think, was sort of a sign from us that like, oh, this was,
The right
a good
move.
time for me to make this full-time transition. So that's how that flow happened from being a CrossFit gym owner to starting my real estate career full-time.
And I work with a lot of small business owners, and I think sometimes they don't necessarily understand that in every, and maybe they do, but it's time, energy, and money, right, to get involved into anything new. So when you first moved into real estate, what was the type of time and financial investment you had to make to get involved in that
Yeah,
personally?
it's a phenomenal question. So, and this is something I tell people who want to get into real estate and they see what I've done and they sort of think, well, I'm going to go get licensed and do what you do. And it's like, okay, but this is especially the intensity that I put to it. It was a every day, all day, constant amount of effort and thought that had to go into creating this. And a lot of it, I think, was even unconscious because when I first started, again, it was almost this side hustle or this thing that, we had so that we didn't have to pay commissions. And then it slowly unfolded into more. So as it unfolded into more and I saw the possibilities of what I could build, it became something that was like a daily routine of these are the things I do to build a pipeline. These are the things I do to service clients every day. These are the things that I do for marketing and ideas and, trying to create a space for myself in a very saturated industry. So the type of time is, was for me all the time. And as far as like financially, I think probably just seeing like because I sacrificed the time there, then my gym business started to decline. So it wasn't so much of money that I was paying to do this as much as it was because I took my focus off of my primary income, we saw that drop, but at the same time we saw the real estate income go up. So at the end of the day, that was better for us. But you definitely I think time is money. And I think most people who, own businesses understand that. And so putting your time and effort and energy into something like this is a commitment. And if you don't do it, you just won't be able to build something, especially not today, especially not in this industry, as it's getting harder for us to earn commissions and there's more and more people getting licensed. It is something where if you're going to do this, it is a full-time effort that you have to put into it.
And it's not just Monday through Friday, right? I'm sure you work a lot of Saturdays and Sundays.
Hell no, it's not no Monday through Friday. In fact, it's kind of funny. Now I consider like Mondays and Tuesdays to be somewhat my days off.
Yeah.
Because the weekends are so busy. Like now, my business is at a level where I don't do a lot of like hands-on servicing of clients, like in terms of going and showing houses and things like that. That is no longer like something I do a ton of. But even still, running a team, it's like things are happening. A lot of moving parts start to unfold on the weekends. So just having to be available for all that and just things happen. Someone's house floods all of a sudden. Okay, that happens in the middle of a Thursday night. Now you're dealing with that, right? Or somebody's spinning out over something in a contract, and that could happen at any point in time. So yeah, it's definitely there are no real boundaries in terms of your work week anymore. You have to just kind of decide when your boundary is and just understand that when you come back from that boundary, shit's probably going to be kind of not that great, and you're going to have to pick up those
a lot of cleanup later.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So for a realistic expectation, somebody who wants to get into the real estate world or is like, hey, this seems like a great idea from day one, how long did it take for you to start making great money in real estate?
Okay, so it took me almost no time, but that I am the exception. So I want people to hear me say that. And here's why. Because the basis of this type of business is the relationship. Because I already had the CrossFit gym and I had it's called a sphere of influence is what we call it. I had a sphere of influence already. I already had people who knew, like, and trusted me in one world. So it was easy for me, especially with a sales background, to take that know, like, and trust and pivot it to a new business. And because I was able to do that, like I said, I think my license, I think I took my final test in September, and you had to do some contract writing class in October before you could officially be licensed. So I was like officially licensed in October, and I closed my first transaction, I believe, in November. So that was a month, right? So, and I did it right away. You won't do that. If you don't have a basis of what I already had, it will, in general, what most say is about 6 to 9 months before you'll earn your first commission. So, because it takes time for you to get the word out what you're doing, start building relationships, also get the industry knowledge, right? Like, understand what you're doing. And this is important because you are handling the biggest, typically someone's biggest financial transaction of their life. You're handling that. So you also have to have your skills and knowledge, mentorship from somebody who knows what they're doing. All of this takes time. So I would say, if this is something that somebody wants to do, understand that you're going to be at this for probably, to be honest, a year before you start getting some steady income going. And that's if you are hitting this every single day as a business and not like
not dabbling.
Side hustling. Exactly. We're not dabbling. Yes. And I'm like, to me, especially I'm in my eighth, I think I don't know, 8th or 9th year as a realtor. When I look back to when I first started, it's obscene that I was doing as many deals as I was doing with no support. Now that I see the things that I encounter in contracts and like the stuff that can go wrong, it's sort of like, holy shit. Like if this had happened to me back then, I don't even know, what I would do. Right. So there's also a part of me now when I look at people who are dabbling or, just sort of doing this, like, hey, I do 1 or 2 deals a year. It's like, that is a dangerous person to be handling a transaction, because when things go wrong, they typically go way wrong. And you got money on the line, and you got people moving out of houses. Now they're home, all types of stuff can happen. So I tell people, like, don't dabble in real estate. Do it or don't, because you can really hurt somebody if you aren't getting the reps in to get the experience needed to make sure that the client is protected.
That makes sense. And I want to hit on mentorship a little bit. You talked about that. So there's a huge network of realtors, right? There's realtors all over Phoenix, and some are better than others, right? They're unbelievable. How likely is it that you can pick up the phone and just call the top real estate person and they'll help you? Like, was it easy to find help in that industry since there are so many? And what did that look like? Was it ever like, hey, these people I just know aren't going to help, these people are going to help? Like, what is that dynamic like in that industry?
What a good question. So, my first mentor in my real estate career was actually my escrow officer, like the go-to escrow officer at the title company that I sort of fell into using. His name was Phil Putnam, and he was somebody who I could just call and be like, Phil, like, what does this mean? Or I don't understand how this works. And he would answer my questions. And, he had a vested interest in my success because I was sending him business, and I was sending him a lot of it. I think my first year in business, I did like 35 transactions or something like that. So, he had a vested interest in me getting it right. The other thing is I had a great loan officer. It was my husband and our loan officer. It was him. And he, as on the loan side, you understand, especially when you do a lot of mortgages, you start to understand how the flow is. So I had kind of these 2 people that were sort of flanking me and helping me with questions. And then I just, I got involved in like a Facebook forum that I'm still a part of now. I think there's like 15,000 realtors in it, Arizona realtors. And I would post in there, and I'm kind of a clown. I'm kind of a cut up. So like I would just post in there and just say stuff and whatever. And there were some top agents that sort of took note of like, this girl in here sort of in here talking shit and being funny or whatever. And one day I got contacted by one of the most prolific, legendary Arizona realtors of all time. His name's Russell Shaw. And he friended me on Facebook. And then from there, he sort of became my first real estate mentor in terms of like sales, like, and handling people and how to like structure my business. He gave me books to read. The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller is one of like the, top books you can read, especially if you're a new realtor trying to build a business. But he was also just there for me to like call him and just be like, this is happening. What do I do? And I think having him and a few other people take interest in me because I was successful so quickly, really caused me to believe, like, now in my position, like, I always mentor agents. I get contacted by agents almost every day that I don't know, that I have no vested interest in their success, but mentoring is something like giving back at this point, because I don't know where I would be if these people hadn't taken the time to help me, again, with nothing to gain, right? They were never trying to recruit me to their company. There was never an ulterior motive. It was just that. In my experience, the best agents, the top agents, we all have that spirit of helping each other because it helps our industry. And there's so many agents that just are really just horrible at their jobs, and they're almost dangerous. So for us, like, that reflects poorly on all of us. So if us leaders aren't out there helping to shape and mold people that need mentorship, then like how can we really expect the public to respect us as an industry? That's kind of where I come from when it comes to mentorship.
That's a great point and a good perspective to look at, because you're right. In any industry, the people who give you a bad reputation give the whole industry a bad reputation. It's not just, that one person. It's like they look at the whole job. So,
yeah.
So going into that, turnover rate in real estate can be pretty high, right? Because I feel like a lot of people want to get involved in it. Not a lot of people, it's all about what you put in, right? What you put in is what you get out. And can we talk about that a little bit? Like, what do you see in the most successful agents that start maybe with no experience? They come in. What are the attributes of the people who make it, and what are the attributes of the people who fall off?
The turnover is insane, and it's because it's very much a self-generated business where we work. Almost all of us are 100% commission for our earnings, and so it's all about what can you build, and the ability to build something from scratch, and the skill set to build from scratch. And these are things that people aren't not most people are naturally inclined to do. So the attributes that I notice for the most successful in terms of building a business, and there's a difference. There's a difference between a good realtor in terms of the skill set of realtoring, and then a good real estate business owner. These are two separate things. So I think a good real estate business owner on the basis must be a good realtor, because in order to build your business, and based on primarily reputation, especially, is through success, is through your clients getting the goals, having their goals met, and being able to then market their success to spread the word, get referrals. And that's what I built my business primarily on, is repeat and referral business. So on the basis, it's, are you a good realtor? Do you understand the contract process? Do you understand the transaction process? Do you know how to solve problems? Are you a critical thinker? Or do you have the ability to negotiate? Do you have the ability to keep good relations with other realtors so that you can get both clients to the finish line? These are like basic skills of being a good realtor. Real estate business owners that are successful run their real estate business like a business. So one of the things I think is super important to say here is that, yes, this is a service, relational, can be a feel-good business. I know a lot of people say they got their license because they like looking at homes and they like people. And it's like, good, I guess, but like, do you like having a structured process for every day of what you do in order to add more people to your pipeline, market your services, market your results? Do you track and measure your results with some type of intensity, or with some eye for, hey, we're looking at this action is meant to create this result, and if that result isn't happening, what are you going to do about it, instead of just letting it be broken? It's about understanding your budget and understanding your expenses, and it's a business. So I think that people who excel and make it and avoid scratching out are the ones that have a good combination of, I'm a good realtor, but also I have a good sense for business. And I understand that the way that my profit looks, the way that my reputation looks is a reflection of me. So it's not the market that's causing me to be broke. It's because I am not doing the things every day that I need to do to build this thing so that I'm not broke, or so that I can predict my income. And so I can control my expenses. Like it, I hope I'm being clear, but it's like
Yeah.
there's kind of two different worlds here that you have to be somewhat good at least on the realtoring side. But then on the business side, the stronger you are on that, the better. One thing that's any person that's considering doing needs to really be focused on is leads. The number one thing that solves problems in your business is having leads, because you can have a business kind of that runs a little funky and clunky, but as long as you have a steady flow of leads coming in, you can somewhat still work with that, because money solves a lot of problems for you.
Right.
If you're not comfortable with lead generation, if you don't know how to do it, that's the first thing that you need to get a handle on, because without leads, it doesn't matter how good your business plan is, how good your systems are. If you don't have people in there who are transacting, then you're never going to be able to get that engine running.
Yeah,
So
I heard someone say a quote that said you just have to make enough money to subsidize your learning curve, right? Like you have to make enough money to be able to like learn how to do it. But if you're not,
that's
the money's not
exactly
coming
right.
in, you run out of time, you know?
Yeah.
So it buys you
Yeah.
time for sure.
Yeah.
Time to
And
learn.
that's like the benefit. That's the benefit of me, but being in terms of being able to push a lot of business through quickly at the beginning was that, because I didn't really, I wasn't running my real estate business like a business from the start,
Right.
but because I had enough stuff flowing, it masked a lot. It kind of helped float me through so that I didn't scratch out, and I could have enough time to see the possibilities of like, oh, what could this be if I just got my shit together? Wow.
Right.
Okay. And that's motivation to make sure that happens.
Yeah. And I see you leverage social media quite a bit, right? You've used social media to your benefit to either lead generate. Hey, have you used it to find agents? Have you used it like what are the primary focuses when you do that? What tips do you have for that?
I'm this is one thing that I have such a hard time articulating around my social media, but it is the key to how I built my business back 8 years ago, especially. Um, I'm just such a fan of like storytelling and humor and just like the human experience. So when I first started using social media to talk about real estate, it really wasn't focused on trying to get more business. It was, listen to this great story about how this went down. And, make it funny, make it colorful, be creative. Like all of it was around just an expression. But then those expressions, I think, especially because I wasn't coming from a salesy place, it really caused people to gravitate towards me and like realize that like there's the transaction and then there's the relationship. And a lot of people, especially if you're like doing something for the first time, having that relationship helps create trust, so that then you give the realtor space to transact with little kind of static. So I noticed that people would just come to me and be like, I saw how you helped such and such do this. And like, I had the same problem. I didn't have any money for a down payment, or my credit was bad. Could you help me? And be like, yeah. And then I'm I don't know, I'm like one of those people that stops and picks up like a baby bird with a broken wing on the thing and take it home in the shoebox and like try to nurse it back to health. So like, sure, like, yes. So I would take them on, and then that would become another story. So that's how I used that at the beginning, was just sort of this pure expression of what was going on and how much joy I got out of doing it. Now my social media is a little different. I actually don't talk a ton about real estate on my social media anymore, my personal one. I just talk more about myself, my family, my hobbies. And it's funny. It just seems like it still continues to work. I probably get at least one inquiry a week from Instagram or on Instagram or Facebook of like, hey, I love that dress. Oh, by the way, we're thinking of selling our condo. Right. So now it's turned into more of this, hey, we're in each other's world and you are the realtor I know. Like when I think of any real estate related thing, you're the person I think of. It's more that dynamic. When at the beginning, it was more me introducing myself as this real estate professional and how it is that I am. So it's shifted over time. I would tell any person though, like if you are going to have a real estate business and you have any type of social media, you must talk about your real estate business on your social media, because that's where your sphere of influence is. These are the people that are already friends with you, who already know you. Those are your best first set of potential clients. So
Yeah.
you must be comfortable with sharing, hey, I'm doing this. This is what's happening. Like, however you do it, make sure you use it, because if you don't, it's a big waste of an opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Especially for finding additional agents too. I'm sure people are like, hey, I've thought about it. Can I work with you? Because they already see who you are and how you respond to
Yes.
things. It helps build that reputation as well, I'm sure, personally
Yeah,
recruiting.
it does.
Yeah.
It does. Absolutely.
So I know you work with your husband pretty closely. What's that like? You know, how do you guys manage that dynamic? Because sometimes it's really hard to work with a significant other. So what are some maybe tips for people that might work with their spouse in a different realm, or in any circumstance? Like, what type of advice do you have for that?
Well, it's funny. My husband and I have somehow we always worked together. When we owned the gym, we owned that together, um, and then when I got it, and we actually owned an insurance agency also during that period. I'm a licensed insurance agent too. Well, I know because we bought an insurance book of business, but he was captive and we needed someone independent, so I had to go get my license. So then we did that together, and then we have this where he's a loan officer, and I obviously sell real estate. So it's yeah, I think it can be very challenging. I think the only reason it works for us is because he knows how I am, and he is very when it comes to my business, there is just it is we're doing it the way I'm doing it. Like, it's my intensity. It's like I want it done. I'm not trying to hear no, and he just knows that's how I am. So the whole reason that he is a loan officer is because the past loan officers we worked with just couldn't, like, they would just be like, hey, she's freaking me out. Like, I can't, or I would be like, hey, they don't respond fast enough. This is not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, listen, let me just get the license so then we can work, then I'll handle you. Right. So, yeah, I think honestly, because we know each other so well, we just know how each other is, and it's just we know how to navigate. And we're also best friends. We get along famously. We almost never fight, so that's helpful because that's how it is also in this world. One thing about him that makes a big difference is, like, I'm very like execution or like action oriented, and he's very visionary and he's very creative. So because of those two things, like, he can see solutions that I'm too busy working to see, and then introduce, and I'm like, great, okay, and then I can execute on that solution that I never would have seen. So because of that dynamic we have, and how he's just this creative, like, kind of brilliant mind, when it comes to like loans and even structuring deals, he's great at negotiating. Like, I'll go to him and be like, I can't get the seller to do blah, blah, blah. And he'll be like, okay, what about this? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God, perfect. So that's kind of how we work. And then when it comes to his ideas and things he wants to do, he's got all these great ideas, but if you leave it up to him, they're never going to happen. Right. So, but I'm the one who's like, all right, let's put it into action. Let's move it forward. So I think knowing your roles and your strengths is a big part up front. Is like, you're good at this, I'm good at this. When it comes to these things, you're going to carry this weight and I'm going to carry this weight. And, at the end of the day, sometimes there's going to be conflict or whatever, but, just respect, love, like all the basic things of like being married,
Yeah.
try to stay married. And the other thing is, I just know some people that cannot work together, so that's the other thing is there's some couples that even they're both realtors, and they run completely separate real estate businesses because they can't figure the dynamic out. And I think that's also a fair, like, conclusion to come to, is like, okay, it's not worth, our marriage ending over a real estate transaction. So
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And if you could go, so last question, if you could go back 8 years and have a conversation with yourself when you first started getting involved in what you're in now, what you could sit down with that person, what advice would you give that person?
I would tell me to get a CRM, for God's sakes. Get a CRM, please. I'm still dealing with the fact that I didn't have a CRM at the beginning.
And tell us
So
what a CRM is, just so people watching this know.
So think of it as like it's like a database that you put all of your people in, all their information. You get their birthdays. Listen to me, you guys. You get their full names. You get obviously their phone number, email, their birthdays, notes about them, who referred them to you. Do this from the beginning, or you'll be like me, 8 years later and still missing clients that you sold houses to, and now you have no idea what their contact information. You lost them, right? You're not keeping in touch with them. So that's the other thing. But related to that is realizing the power of keeping in touch, like having set systems and automation in place to help you make sure you're constantly staying in front of the people who had a good experience with you. It is amazing right now. Like I don't know, I probably have 20 listings right now, and all of them are people who worked with me before, because I stayed in touch with them. It's free business. So make the investment up front to be organized, get a database, and put the automations in place if while you have a smaller set of people to work with. So you're not sifting through thousands of names trying to figure out who went where, what, how. So do that. The other thing is realizing that the creativity and the joy of the work is really what it's about. So you are going to see a million different ways that this can go down. You're going to see one real estate business owner run their marketing this way or have their focus be this, and you're going to see another do this. There's no right answer. There's no one right answer. The right answer is the thing that is going to bring out your creativity, your joy, because the consistency of it is what creates the success. Whatever you're going to do that you want to build, it's going to require consistent effort over time, period. So the thing that you need to tap into very quickly is what inspires my creativity, what makes me feel happy and joyful when I wake up, energized to do the work. Because if you don't have that piece and you're just doing an impersonation of the other people around you and it doesn't fit you, you're never going to be consistent enough to see the success, and therefore you're going to burn out, you're going to get discouraged, and you might even quit. So I would say those three things: get yourself a CRM, make sure you're keeping in touch with your people, and just be in tune with the thing that brings you alive, enough to where you can know that every day, if I had to wake up and do this and talk about this, that's going to bring me enough joy to sustain me. Because once the deals flow, that starts sustaining you. But it's like, have you ever started a new diet and you go and step on the scale and how the hell did I gain 2 pounds?
Yeah.
Right? Or why I've only lost a quarter pound. Meanwhile, your husband's lost 17 pounds. You've lost a quarter pound. It could be very demoralizing. But then when you step on the scale and you're like, oh shit, 5 pounds down, my jeans are loose. Now you get that juice. Now you got momentum, right? And you can use that to sustain your action. But at the beginning, you're going to have to go based off of your heart and what really lights you up, as to get you to that point where you start flowing.
And what are the main metrics that you use to measure success in your industry? What are the benchmarks that you think this defines success for the first 6 months?
Good question. I mean, this is because every business is its own thing.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to have one set answer. For me, if I'm going to look at an agent and personally decide if they are, rocking and rolling, I would want to see them selling 1 home a month after their first maybe 18 months in the business. So a home a month, where every single month you have something transacting, I think is a sign of a successful agent. I think I heard some statistic that said something crazy, the average, the average real estate agent sells something like 6 homes in their whole career. So, I mean, yeah, it's true. there's agents out there that only have transacted with friends and family or with their own transactions in their whole career. So like that's clearly not successful. But I think, if you're just getting going, you're in your first couple of years, if you can get yourself flowing a deal a month, that means like, okay, you've built something that most people haven't, if being honest.
And a deal a month, on average, a commission rate is what?
Gosh, I don't know what average commission is at this point. I would say in Arizona, what is it? Like average price point is 435, commissions like 2.5%. So let's just say what is that? 10 grand.
So bringing in 10 grand a month after 18 months of effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for most people, that's life-changing money.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge.
So it's like, think of it that way. Like you worked 18 months. Prior to that, you were working for some place that was paying you 50 grand a year, right?
Right.
You worked 18 months in order to get yourself to where you're making 8 to 10 grand a month is like not a bad trade-off.
Right.
Really like look at it.
Yeah. But having a good team is crucial, right? Having a good loan officer, having a good escrow team, all of that stuff, it gets it processed faster. I can feel your pain on that. Just, like they're not moving fast enough to get this deal done. Like we got to move. So I totally, the speed to transaction is crucial in real estate, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially when you're competing with 1 million other realtors too, right?
Absolutely.
Like, called speed to lead for a reason, and that even speed to transact, it's an interesting term you just said, is important, because the longer you go from meeting a client and them saying I want to transact to them transacting, the more that gets stretched out, the less likely they are to transact with you. So you do want to shorten that period of time.
Right. Yeah. Especially when people are all high impulse when they want to sell their home, right? But I'm sure impulse drops the longer it sits on the market. So you got to be aggressive to get that done. Yeah, that's awesome. Really, really interesting stuff. Do you mind sharing like what your best year ever was? You can either do total gross sales or personal. Like what was your best year so far?
Okay, so I'm gonna go with personal instead of team.
Okay.
So I think the most my team ever sold was year before last. We did like almost 215 sales between us. But what it cost me to do those sales, I still, my take home income like wasn't even close to what you would think it would be based on just how expensive the place was that I was at doing that kind of volume. But, I think I actually might be in my best year now, though I have a personal, I personally don't track my own deals, like this running total, because I get too freaked out and start getting wild. But I think a few years ago, I sold like 80 something homes myself, like by myself. And I think I'll probably do around that, maybe 90 this year. So it's a great year. And that's in a very, very down market, so that's, I think, what I like about the fact that I'm around that same number is the total number of transactions happening across the state are lower than they were, I think, in 2007. Like it's extremely low, the number of deals and transactions happening. So the fact that I have that much of them going on personally is great. But the other, I think, bigger thing for me is like a work-life balance, right? Like, so I've come to a place where I've figured out how to transact and still live a life and still be a mom and, have the lifestyle I want without being, having my hair fall out or like wanting to run into traffic. Like these are those intangible wins that really matter, to me at this point, because what do I need to sell in order to live the life I want is a fraction of what I do. So now it sort of doesn't really matter as long as it feels right and I feel good about what I'm building for my team and my team members too. That's also super important to me.
And able to be there for your kids, I'm sure, and be present. Yeah. I know your kids are pretty little, so that must feel really good to be able to have the kind of income that you have and be able to show up when they need you to be there, at school things and other stuff going on.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's great. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for this. This has been super informative. I think this is going to help a lot of small business owners. And if we have anyone watching this who's in Arizona, how do they find you?
Listen, go on, you can find me Monie Wilder, Facebook, Instagram. My website's moniewilder.com. It's really easy to find me. Just type it in. You'll see me somewhere. Just click on it. I'm super responsive. I'm here to help. Like if you have questions about real estate, obviously, if you're a realtor and you want to talk, I do some coaching. So if anyone wants to get coached or, just kind of develop their sales skills, I do that as well.
That's awesome. Okay, great. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And next time I'm in Arizona, I'll beg Michelle to have a dinner with you or something, and we can sit down and chat face to face.